I'm Adam, this is Does It Hold Up? And here's my review for Darkness of Man, a movie that I was privileged enough to check out early since it doesn't release until May 21st, and you can find out right now if I think it's worth watching. So Jean-Claude Van Damme stars as a former Interpol agent, Russell Hatch, who takes a young man named Jaden under his wing after the mother is killed and decides to be his guardian. When Jaden falls in with the wrong crowd, Jean-Claude Van Damme must come to his rescue and put an end to a turf war that's been going on for quite some time. If that sounds interesting, well, definitely worth watching. If it doesn't sound interesting enough, let me tell you a few more good things about this movie. Jean-Claude Van Damme actually puts in a pretty good performance. It's very understated, and you can tell that he's definitely getting up there in years because the action isn't quite as fast or as crisp as it might have been, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. It actually feels like it's at half speed, and yet somehow it's still really brutal, violent, and kind of intense. The problem I have with Jean-Claude Van Damme in this movie is that it relies heavily on what's supposed to be meaningful narration. But Jean-Claude Van Damme might not be the actor you want to get if you want meaningful narration over your entire movie, because a lot of what he says does get lost along the way. So maybe it meant something, maybe it didn't. Be a lot better if I could understand half of what he was saying. But that doesn't take away from the fact that he gives a pretty emotional performance in this. He's alongside Emerson Min, who plays Jaden, the young man that he's trying to rescue, who puts in a really good performance as well for somebody his age. I've never seen him in anything else, but I will definitely check him out in other movies going forward. This movie was directed by James Cullen Bressick, who is not a name that you probably know. He has directed a lot of movies, but none of them have ever really hit the mainstream. So if you don't know the name, it's okay, you're not alone. And to be honest, he might not have been the man for this. The script is good in this movie. There's a lot going for it. It actually works really well. I think in the hands of a more capable director, this movie has some magic behind it. It could be maybe not a top tier movie, but definitely a B tier movie that people could be interested in and get crowds to go check it out, pay for it on video on demand, stream it when it's available, and get a nice cult following. I just think this director actually lets the movie down a little bit. So the story, what works here? Jean-Claude Van Damme must save Jaden from a Russian and Korean turf war happening, and he doesn't really want to get in the middle of it. He's only there because he's chosen to protect this kid from everything. And then there's a nice twist at the end that, although I saw coming from, probably a million miles away, it sort of worked. It's a little disappointing that it was so in your face the entire time and didn't really surprise you, but the final confrontation in this movie is extremely tense, and that's down to the performance of the two actors in that scene. So even though you can see what's coming, it doesn't disappoint once it arrives, which is really good for a movie. Sometimes when you see something coming from so far away, no matter what it does, you're going to be disappointed and let down. Not so much here. The pacing of this movie I thought worked really well. It's definitely harking upon old noir films with a little bit of a modern twist, and if that's your style, you're going to like this movie. If it's not your style, like the person I was watching the movie with, this one might not be for you. I do like noir movies, so I like the narration. I like the slow unraveling of the story. I also really like the cinematography and the color grading in this movie. The colors actually played like an entire character in this movie. You knew what was happening or what was going to happen based on what lighting was occurring at the time. Camera work was done really well, even if they were doing a few things just for that, art look. What are you going to do? Overall, this movie is compelling with its story, its pacing, its cinematography, especially its performances. So, is it worth watching? I absolutely think so. At least one time. I don't think this is a movie I would ever revisit, though. Once might have been enough. So if neo-noir is your style, if Jean-Claude Van Damme is an actor that you like and you're like, where's he been? How come I haven't seen him in anything in a while? This one's definitely worth watching. It comes out on May 21st in select theaters. It also comes out on paid video on demand. So if you got a little extra money sitting around, you might want to go ahead and rent this one. And then come back here and let me know in the comments what you thought about this movie, and let me know if you enjoyed it. Alright, until I see you next time, just remember to be good to yourself, be kind to others, and as always, keep watching movies.